All right, I think it's working. All right, hi everyone. I'm Josh from the Public AI Inference Utility, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here for a very open-ended Q&A on the utility, on Apertus. We're joined by our special guest, Immanuel Schlag from the Swiss AI Initiative. But this is really, I think, an opportunity just for the folks here to just like, are there strange things going on with the utility? Wait, do you have questions about Apertus? How did it get trained? Uh, why is it not working? Or does it sound well, no, I think it actually mostly works pretty well. But clearly, AIs do sometimes make mistakes and we're trying to fix them. We're also joined by, actually, I'll go through some slides now to kind of give you all a really quick introduction, and then we'll just jump straight into questions. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. Great. All right. So as mentioned, here's the Q&A, and we have our fancy logo, Public AI Inference Utility. So today, we have a team of folks joining here who will be kind of answering questions on various parts of the platform. Myself from the utility, Immanuel, who can talk about Apertus and Swiss AI, Joseph, who's our lead engineer on the project and can answer a lot of questions on the technical specs as well as the platform. Catherine and Nick couldn't join us today, unfortunately, but Jacob is here and can answer some questions about our plans for how to bring more contributors on board, especially in Switzerland, but also abroad. Maybe just as a preliminary thing, what the hell is public AI, you might be asking. So public AI, to be clear, is actually, first off, an idea. It's not really an organization. It's this movement of people who believe that AI can and should be a form of public infrastructure. So think things like parks or highways, libraries, electricity, water, the internet. There are a lot of different forms of public infrastructure, and we want AI to look like at least one of these things. So what's the utility? It's pretty simple, really. It's just a platform backed by a bunch of compute from various compute partners worldwide, where we host a front end where you can do a little chat, as well as a back end, so an API platform for developers that lets people use public AI models like Apertus. You can compare this to a lot of other things like Hugging Face or ChatGPT free tier, and different versions of this exist across different countries. But what we're trying to do is make that more stable, make it better, bring it all together a little bit. I'll start off by saying like, hey, we have some announcements and love to answer some questions about them. First, if you go to the website right now, I literally just pushed this 10 minutes ago, so there's no reason for you to know this, but we are now an official inference provider for Hugging Face. So now when you go to Hugging Face / I think swish-AI, you try to download Apertus, you'll see you can actually test it there and access our inference infrastructure directly through the Hugging Face API, which I think many people here may be already quite familiar with. If we will also are planning, we were going to try to do this by the time for this call and then realize it might be tough to ship this entire feature within the day or two that we had. But we are planning to launch a plus mode very shortly that will include a few things like pre-release access to new models, for example, Spain's, an opt-in to our data flywheel. So this idea here is we want to be generating data that we send back to the national labs and the public institutions to help make the next round of models better. How do we do that? And to do that, we need some sort of opt-in. And the idea here is to create a kind of like a Wikipedia-like kind of mechanism for volunteering / peer production. This is going to be a little bit sensitive, but I feel like we should be able to do this. Give people the ability to deploy tools directly to our front end. So I don't know how many of you recognize, for example, the Swiss German tool, the little toggle. But hopefully, this is very much an open source project, and we want people to be able to change the nature of the project and of the product. So we want to give people some sort of access to the ability to deploy new tools and new features to the front end relatively permissionlessly. Okay. Lastly, just a short about us. Yeah, we're the public AI inference utility. We're a small team working to support some of the amazing work that folks like you and all are doing at national labs across the world. We're fiscally sponsored by Metagov, a Massachusetts-based nonprofit that specializes in building open source institutions. And we're funded by folks like Mozilla, the Future of Life Institute, and the Center for Cultural Innovation to do this kind of work. So yeah, we're a nonprofit. And lastly, this is part of a larger movement of many people who care about public AI across the world. And with that, I'll just open to questions. Quick point of order. If you have a question, just use the raise hand feature. Otherwise, please do keep yourself on mute. Yeah. Dr. Alexander Hinkes.
Hi, Alex here. I'm a postdoc at ETH and soon also working for a startup. And I was wondering what is your plan with the API? So right now it is more or less free, I think, but there is going to be like a paid version. I don't know. So I would love to include that into our application. Right now we use Mistral as an European version, but it is not the same. It is not a real open model and so on. So I was wondering, what are your plans in the future, and what about capacity and such things?
Sounds like a pretty important question to a lot of folks here. The answer is, let me give a short answer, and I'll pass this to Joseph for a long answer about what we're kind of working on this end. So the utility and all the inference is supported by a bunch, basically donated compute from a bunch of partners. And a big part of our work is like building an advertising stack or like a sponsorship stack to like keep them incentivized to keep providing this inference. A second part of it involves trying to work with effectively governments and other kind of large entities to help fund this as a kind of public inference, right? In the meantime, for the next 4 weeks or so, probably longer, I'm pretty sure we can guarantee this for at least like 2 more months. It will just be free. Maybe there'll be a tip jar or something like that. We are building a kind of paid option if you want like really steady access. You want to build something on this. You want to make sure this is like keep going. We are working on that option, and I'll sort of let Joseph talk a little bit about that. But our fundamental aim here is, we just want AI to be as cheap and as accessible as possible. And we want that to be, so publicly accessible, publicly accountable, and to some degree, like permanent. So just like a highway is not going to disappear tomorrow. Like this thing cannot disappear tomorrow. So we're absolutely on the same page. And we're trying to figure out how to do that. Let me pass it to Joseph.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess just a quick add-on to that. Short answer is, if you want to build like something more enterprise ready, just reach out to us. It's really more of a case-by-case basis right now. We can like dedicate compute to that. Longer answer is that if our advertising play works out with our partnerships, it could be like free for like very much in the long run. The way we are trying to do this is to run it like a public good. And I guess an analogy is Hugging Face actually doesn't put a markup on top of billing for inference providers. So if you query like any of the inference providers on Hugging Face, you're effectively getting like the same rate that inference providers provide to you. And if we can succeed in what we're trying to do, we'll be the only free inference provider on Hugging Face. So that's that's really the goal, and we need like all your help from everybody here to try to attain that. Yeah, hope that answers.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Torniko. Oh, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Might try just typing something into the chat. Sorry.
We had another question from the chat right now, which was which model are you running in the front end, 8B or 70B? So the landing page website has the 8B model, but if you sign up and go to our chat, our full chat app, that's the 70B model. Yeah. Maybe Imanol wanted to add something to that.
Actually, I wanted to I had a little follow-up question for Alex, because I was wondering what he's building and if he is willing to share a little bit what the startup is trying to build and how maybe Apertus could improve to serve that better.
Yeah, if I may answer directly. So this is free helper for relocation. And for now, it's especially for Switzerland. And for that, you know, Swiss German is not a bad option. But in general, it's for everybody who wants to come to Switzerland. So we have a source of truth, a knowledge base, which is then via rack system and so on is queried. So the knowledge is really like handcrafted, and we don't need too much computational power. Yeah, so we do not need ChatGPT, I don't know, version 5000. Yeah, we need small models. So right now we're using Mistral, and Apertus would be really nice for that. And we would appreciate the compliance of the model and the multilinguality. And as I said, we don't need the highest notch models. And I think this would be a great, a great feature of the application. And as I said, for users, it's completely free. So yeah, it would play along with the public serving, storyline as well.
Thanks.
Very cool. I think we have some answers in the chat as well. Okay. Patrick also asked, put in a photo and asked, any idea why it answers in Chinese? I think this is something I'm gonna send to you, Emmanuel.
Yeah, let me take a look here. So what I don't actually know is what happens exactly when you toggle the Schweizerdeutsch modus. Like, do you change the system prompt by doing so?
On our end, it's an addition to the top of the first message that the model gets. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, it should be on the system prompt level.
Yeah. So thanks for highlighting in red, but I can't quite tell why it is why there's Chinese in there. To be honest, I haven't seen that mix that much. I mean, the model can sometimes go a bit haywire. This is partially because it was mainly developed to be a platform or foundation for research and development and not a full-fledged product. And so, yeah, I don't have a good answer, unfortunately.
Patrick, are you trying to? I see you unmuted.
Yeah. You hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, I was playing around with the model in the API, actually, and I couldn't get it to give me multilingual answers. So what I'm trying to do is like extract or give me an abstract of this document summary or a summary of this in German, but give me an image prompt in English, for instance, because like if I want to picturize the abstract with an image, the image prompt in English will work better for other image models that I'm using. And it would not do that. It will like answer only in German or only in English. It wasn't very consistent in following instructions. And I don't know, is that just because it's the API? I've been using the 7dB model in the API. And so I didn't know, is there any way that I can give it more adherence to the prompt or make it follow the directive more? I just couldn't get it to mix languages in a response. It would only respond in one language.
Yeah, no, this is an issue with the post-training, I guess. It's because the post-training data that we have is, although we do have some multilingual post-training data, it's rarely actually mixed. There's few examples where there is like an English prompt that uses a French document to generate something in Spanish, which would probably circumvent some of these instruction following issues quite a bit. The reason mainly is there is little data around for this particular case, just like many other instruction following cases. And we are working on this, trying to expand this as well, but also hoping that the open source community can contribute to a certain degree. And this is something I think can be easily improved upon.
Okay. Because we have particular like, or also like, give me an abstract of this in French, Italian, and German, so that you'd be able to use it for all official languages in Switzerland. It just wouldn't adhere to those commands.
Yeah, it's mainly just instruction following data that needs to teach the model how to behave in these situations, because the model does not have this naturally. Post-training is all about behavioral training, about like injecting also ideology, which is not so relevant in this case. And there is just the majority of, let's say, the data that's available open source for these purposes is centered around English. All of the reward models are also mainly for English, which is while the style in other languages can be worse as well. And especially like the lower resource the language is. This is mainly an engineering data issue, which in the big tech companies is solved with like 100 people, 10 each doing a completely different use case that matters, and then iterate and go to the next one. And here we will be a bit slower with this, but this is something that has been brought to our attention as well before, and we hope to improve on that with the next iteration. Yeah, but I cannot make any promises.
Okay.
I think the next question from the chat is from Ali Reza. Hi, thanks for the work. And this is basically, I think, probably for you, Emmanuel, though I suspect, to some degree, Joseph, if it's relevant, you could chime in as well. Is there a plan to release GGUF models and make it work on llama.cpp/ollama for for local use deployment?
Yes. So this is being looked at by several people. I believe actually there's already MLX support for OS X machines for 8B and 70B. I'm not 100% sure what the status is with the other ones, since I'm not directly supervising that. But this is something we're working on, and to some extent, there's also been some movement in the community to try to enable this. Unfortunately, like the reality is that just like there are many things that we could look at regarding data for posting, there's also many different platforms that people care about to maximize impact, and we understand the value of it. It's just that we lack a bit resources as well. This was now to a large degree an academic effort. And so the majority of the people working were PhDs and postdocs and master students. And we're now only sort of ramping up a bit of an engineering team to really kind of deal with these things much better in the future.
Yeah, just to quickly add on to that, I think in many of these, for these many models, for models similar to the Swiss AI initiative in other countries or other research labs, the open source community has kind of like stepped up to kind of make all these like more developer experience kind of stuff more accessible to everyone. So if anybody here has interest, has expertise in this, right now we have a very, very limited engineering capacity, but we are finding more ways and avenues and platforms to kind of let people know that there are people like working on this effort. Yeah, so if anybody here is interested in taking up this request, yeah, do let us know as well.
Maybe just also quickly add is that FP8 has been something we've actually looked at, and have some more updated information, because it's also something an inference partner of us is looking at, and it looks like we might have something to release fairly soon, but there are some issues where the FP8 model now suddenly has lower performance on our benchmarks, which then like would not make much sense to release.
Rosalind, is that a response to this particular thread, or sure, go ahead then.
Well, folks, I'm from Delft, original one. Basically, check the background. Well, what if I told you that quantum is possible on conventional hardware, like on Arduino? And what if I told you there is no need in LLM models? Is it going to change something?
That sounds like it might not be totally relevant to this conversation, Ruslan, but I'm happy to kind of follow up with you afterwards.
Yes.
This is my opinion. 20K, do you want to, I think you're next.
Yeah, I hope at this point at least you can hear me, hopefully. Okay, so my question is, over the last 4 years, we have seen the compute requirements for really intelligent models to exponentially decrease. Like I can run a 20 billion parameter model on my laptop on a RAM without a GPU. So this thing becomes exponentially more cheap as time goes on. So you guys are trying to provide a long-term public good API for AI. Even if everything works out, wouldn't people mostly just be able to run this kind of thing on their own? Like, would that even be necessary? Like every single computer, if the trend goes the way it goes right now, everyone is going to be able to run that, it seems. Like on my smartphone, GPT-5. Sounds crazy, but that's where we are. So what do you think about that? Would advancements make this kind of thing obsolete?
I think that's a really good question. And my kind of broad answer to this question is just sort of like, look at your phone, right? I happen to have an iPhone, you could have Android. You can serve a website from your phone, right? Anybody could, technically. You could serve like pretty dynamic stuff. How many people actually do that is the reality. I think even though, as technology gets better, more and more people can serve or run their own models locally. And honestly, that's something we love, right? We want to support more of that. I think open source models are much more competitive on edge than they are currently on, just like base LLMs. This is, something at the end of the day, I think where most people, the vast majority, are not going to do that in reality. So we need to make sure that there is an option that is, not terrible, that is somehow truly public, and remains so, as it were. So that's the hope of this initiative. Let's keep going. Diego, do you want to unmute and just ask it directly?
I can try. It's having a construction here. So if the noise starts,
all good.
I will stop. But basically my question is related to the use of Apertus in our own server and provided this service as an NGO with focus on, well, not to go into much details, but basically there is the international conversations on human rights and agreements, etc. There is a huge gap in between the implementation. The idea was to train the model, Apertus, to use that to provide a free service for people working on this area. So I'd like to know what are the guidelines or limitations on doing that. Thank you very much.
I think it's really more a question for Joshua and Joseph. I mean, from our side, it's an Apache 2 model. It's available in Hugging Face, so everyone can do with it what they want, essentially. And also for your use, we just there's no guarantees for anything. If you're using it through public AI, then Josh can tell you, I guess, what the limitations are.
Yeah, there aren't any strict limitations at the moment. And my hope is honestly to make sure that there are as few limitations as possible. Because like, anybody, the idea of like infrastructure is that anybody can use it, right?
Okay.
It's
because I saw something somewhere that was available for NGOs, for research institutes, and I understood that for private companies, for example, it wasn't a possibility. So there is no limitation even for these cases.
if you're a private company, you are welcome to use it just as much as an NGO. I think what we're going to focus on for the first question, for example, on like, will there be a paid version? It's more about like, if you want to build like an application and you need this to be like always online and at some sort of performance level, then that's going to like, there's even the API does have like a rate limit on it, right? It's pretty high, but it's there. And maybe that like you need some other sort of like extra tuning. So that's where we would, put a paywall on it, or set up some sort of like some sort of payment system. Otherwise, right now it's free for everybody. Though I'll say, we are obviously also an NGO. So we love it when NGOs use this, and to do that, we can support more of that work. Let us know how. Let's keep going down. And feel free to, I see a hand raised by Hader.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Haida, the industrial designer and digital designer. And in the beginning, I must say thank you for this beautiful project. I tested for some special text and paper, and the results were very good, executable, completely specify output. And I have some question about how we can use it because I'm working now with a small company, a small size, 2%, 3%, and they interest to how to use it in their work. But my question is this about special content? Is this bow industry? Is about architecture and bow industry? Not too much, maximum 200 page, but it must be very accurate. Exactly what I said. About the paid version is okay for next phase, but my question is, what about text to speak? This TTS is available now or not? And the second, we have a text, a document, it's 5 years old, and we want to make a new version with this public AI, Apertus. How we can do it? Actually, I tested now. The result was good, and now I plan to come to Zurich and Winterthur to speak, to talk about this project in person, and we have planned for next year. But my question is multi-language output and TTS. Thank you.
No, thank you for the question, Hader. So I can speak to the direction is text to speech. Yeah. We don't have that capacity. We do have speech to text. If you go into chat.publicai.co right now, there's like a little speech to text button, and it works like reasonably okay. It doesn't have that sort of there isn't like a conversational mode with like a unique system prompt and all that, but that works pretty decently. The in terms of text to speech, so the other side, I would love to implement that. I don't have the engineering capacity to do that at the moment, but I think if enough people like yourself tell me this is really important, I would love this. Then maybe we can put some capacity on it.
You know, sorry, you know,
Yeah, go.
we need the output only one time, and then when we place it in the website, it's actually
Yeah.
one time, and many times they use it.
Yeah.
So about the content is not dynamic; it's static output, and this is important. And text to speech is they love it. The people they are not expert in AI. They love this thing. I have the feedback from people. But the other side, the backend, what happened? They, I'm not software engineer. I'm designer. You know, it's many
Yeah.
things complicated in the backend happen.
Maybe like
People, yes.
maybe like a really quick thing from the folks here, just a show of hands. Who else would like some sort of speech to text functionality? Whether in API mode or okay, we're a few people. Okay. All right. Okay, that's helpful signal. I will look into it. We have some partners that actually focus on voice and voice data. Obviously, that's not like naturally part of Apertus, so it would be kind of like a multimodal thing. But there may be a way of relatively cheaply introducing it. Okay, let's not think through this entire feature during the Q&A. But Joseph, maybe you and I we can talk a little bit afterwards about like what exactly that would take. Of course. Let's just jump through the we have a bunch of questions in the chat, so I can't even see all of them. So Benjamin, do any of the models AP or 70 support structured output similar to OpenAI or other state-of-the-art models? So this is things like code. Joseph, you want to jump on this?
This might be more a question for Imanol on post-training for structured outputs. Yeah.
Yes, so we have trained on some structured output examples that were out there. It's also been trained on a significant amount of code. So it kind of works to different levels of quality and different structured output, like languages, if it's JSON or YAML or whatever. So I would just recommend to give it a try. It works not so bad, I would say. If you really want to force it, then you would have to have like a constraint decoding at the end to ensure that the output is always respected, that the structure is always respected, which is something you would need on top of the model itself. But the model itself, I think, can do a decent job. We do not have a precise benchmark for this, though. Like I don't think we have I don't have a number I can tell you about how good it is. So you'll have to try it out a bit.
Excellent.
We have a question from Beat on his medical tariff assistant. That sounds kind of fun. But the specific question is actually about the API. Joseph is already kind of answering it, but maybe you just give a little bit of background on some common errors that people have experienced with the API.
This was a question to me?
Oh, sorry. This is actually just I was just repeating your question. Joseph, do you want to just like briefly kind of repeat the answer?
Sorry, it was to me. Right.
Just so other people can hear it.
Yeah. So the question is, people are facing issues with trying the developer API. And I think one of the most common errors is you get a 500 error if you just like try to query it directly. And the common cause for that is you need to specify a user agent in your requests. We understand that, this is not standard across other like API providers. Apologize for that. But for us, it's because of our Cloudflare proxy that we've put in front of our API just to prevent like bot spam. So you need to specify the user agent to be something different from the default Python open AI library, just to say that you're not a bot. Other than that, like if anybody faces other issues with the API, do send us an email as well at support@publicai.co, and we usually respond pretty quickly.
This second one's probably also for you, Joseph, slash for me, because I still haven't put up this damn FAQ. Could you clarify, Walid asks, could you clarify or point me to the documentation on the model's token limits, context window size, and whether it supports any form of persistent or session memory? And this is regarding the API, the developer API.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that a little more. Actually, yeah, question back to you, Wallet. Like, by session memory, you mean like at our API level, whether our API remembers your request, like some caching kind of thing? Or do you mean something else?
No, exactly.
Oh,
yeah,
like,
exactly. Like caching mechanisms.
Right. Yeah, so at this point, we don't have the caching mechanism. So what that means is that if you send us a request and then it gets routed to one place, and then you send us another request, it will not necessarily, it's not guaranteed to route back to the same place. It might route somewhere else. So this can be optimized to speed things up a little bit. It's something we are working on. So yeah, that's on the session memory, which we don't have right now. On token limits, right now we have it set at a user level to be about 25,000 tokens per minute. So that is the rate limit we have applied to every user. But we've observed that most people are not hitting this rate limit yet. But if you do have a need for more, do email us again. Yeah, hope that answers the question.
Yes, thanks.
So next question is from Ali Reza about Swiss German. I see Imano has already started answering it. Just to repeat, as Swiss German does not have a written form, and there is not one Swiss German as far as I know. Did you target a specific dialect, or did you explicitly use some writing guide? I'll send this to Imano because my knowledge of German basically begins and ends at genau.
Yeah, so there are many German dialects around. There is a little bit of Swiss German on the web, but we haven't targeted it specifically. It's probably very small. It's hard to track at scale because we don't have a good classifier for it. And so the model actually was more or less trained just on the natural distribution of non-English languages as they appear on the web, to be not biased to Switzerland, actually. And with the exception that in the post-training phase, where we took what we had, what was not English, that was available online and permissive as well, we did a little bit of an effort on Swiss German and Romansh, since those are two low resource languages we particularly care about. We wanted to see how far we can push the low resource language performance. And for Swiss German, it was a few thousand examples that we created, partially manually, partially by native speakers, and partially by semi-synthetic, using simple tools. And for Romansh, it was even a bit more, a few 10,000 examples. Also, about 50% was synthetic, using translation dictionaries or translation data. Yes. And this was actually enough to get it to the performance where it is now. Whereas before this, if you would not, so the very first post-training we did is essentially the Tulu 3 post-training that from Olmo, from the Allen AI Institute, which was our baseline to work from. And if you would use that, it would not speak any Swiss German. It would always respond in High German. And we were surprised, or positively surprised, that with this little effort, we were able to get pretty decent Swiss German performance compared to the effort we put in. But it's hard to measure. And in Romansh, we are beating Llama on a translation benchmark of Romansh to German and the other way around. Romansh is also difficult because it has 5 different idioms, like dialects almost, of which the one that is most popular is the one that no one speaks because it's complicated.
Yes.
And then the other ones are even less represented. I hope this answers the question.
I look forward to learning more Swiss German from Apertus. Let's hop on. The next question is, I guess, also a German question. I think it relates to something, Patrick, you already asked earlier, though. So the question is, why is the language it generates full of grammatical errors, and any way to improve the linguistic output? And Patrick posted an example from generating a children's story in German.
Yeah. Well, it's a generative model, so it's stochastic. It is not perfect, and it in German it should be pretty decent. Usually, I don't see much issues with German, but these particular errors are a bit puzzling to me. I'm not quite sure why that is. This would be something that we'd have to investigate, but we are not programming any of those rules in, and the model doesn't have access to any rules. So it's all sort of statistical patterns it has learned. I believe we humans do something similar, but clearly in this case, the model is not trained sufficiently to do well, and that might be it. On the other hand, it could also be that there is some configs that could be tuned regarding how tokens are being generated. So because the model gives you a probabilistic distribution over what the next token could be, there are some values to tune how you would select it, because you don't always pick the best one, the highest probable one. You usually have a way of sampling from this. And I don't know what the current setting is at Public AI. This is something that is on the serving side. That maybe here every now and then picks a token which is really random or rather unlikely. But it happens if you sample thousands and thousands of tokens, and then suddenly like it derails the model a little bit. So that could be it as well. Maybe actually, Joseph, you can maybe clarify a little bit what the sampling method is really that's being used.
Yeah, we haven't had much time to fine-tune it. So right now it's just the default like VLLM stuff. But if I'm not sure whether you're using the Swiss German toggle, but if you are, I would say that's a good guess as to why it's not great. If it's just like normal German, it might perform much better. I put a link in there as well to the prompt that we're using for Swiss German, which is quite like hard-coded in the sense that it just tells it to add some like common phrases in Swiss German. And that's why it might have like some like extra filler kind of words in there. We had the same problem for the Singlish toggle for Singapore, which is like I was telling the Singapore model to just add in some common like Singlish phrases. This is like Singapore English. So things like la, le, lor, things like this, which are like added on to English sentences, and it just wasn't great at doing it either. So it's really more a artifact of like these more like colloquial languages, which aren't really a part of the data set, like the post-training data set, which Emmanuel shared earlier.
Maybe if I just quickly add to that now, it wasn't the Swiss German toggle at all that was deactivated. And I've had this like, not just in this prompt, but literally in almost everything I do. Like, but first let me like say, I love the idea of Apertus, you know, so this is more like just constructive feedback or problems that I'm running into as a user with it, because I'd love to use it, but whenever I generate text, there's just formulations where you're like, this, it doesn't really speak proper German. The Swiss German it speaks sounds Swiss German, but also that doesn't, it's not one of the 26 dialects, it's just improper completely. It has the same type of mistakes here. And the other multilingual thing that I mentioned earlier is a different type of problem, right? Because that's there I understand, okay, I'm trying to mix two different languages, even if I'm telling it into like output it in separate JSON fields, one in this language and the other in the other language. And I don't know if it's a problem just on this inference, because now I've only been able to test Apertus on public AI, right? So I'm like curious to see, will it react differently to the same questions once it's available on the Swisscom servers, or will it be, is it a model problem or is it a environment problem that's hosting it? And I haven't been able to test it on Hugging Face myself yet, just because my knowledge of setting that up there and accessing it isn't sufficient. But just like, I really want to use the model for like a variety of use cases, but everywhere where I'm trying to use it, I'm getting funny feedback. Like also if I ask it, what are the best websites in domain XYZ for something, it will give you a nice answer, but 4 out of 10 answers are just inexistent, where it's completely hallucinating. And so I don't know if it's just an experience I'm making on my own, or if it's a general experience that other people share as well. And again, no criticism, it's just my first experience with it. Because the idea, I love the model.
Yeah, if I can quickly answer here. So again, I'm not quite sure where the German issues are. If I generate some German text, I haven't really seen dramatic mistakes like the ones you showed me. It could, of course, happen. For us, what would count most is if there is a benchmark that actually measures this in some way, like a translation benchmark, for example. We actually have not evaluated German translation here, so this may be something to look at. Like, for example, from English to German, to see how much an overlap the German translation has with the ground truth data. So that's just one of the many things we could evaluate. The other thing I want to add is that, and this goes back to the hallucination issue when you ask about like 10 websites in this domain, or who are the current members of the council in Switzerland, right? These are things that are incredibly difficult for a model to know if it doesn't have web access. And so it depends, in this case, a lot on the system in which it's embedded, right? And so here it is embedded in public AI, which provides you with just a web search, which is now very much responsible for getting the right information, and that is also not perfect. So if then it doesn't get the right information, then Apertus also can't know it. And this is, of course, also true with the newest sort of information about what happened yesterday. There is a great example, since I think you're Swiss as well. So there is the Zurich City GPT, which you can Google. There's the OSS version of that, which actually uses Apertus as well, which is actually a very nice example of a pretty good working system, although much more narrow because it has only documents from the city of Zurich. And you can ask things like where a regular public AI.co, it would hallucinate, or it would refuse or not know the answer. Like how many people were attending the Zurich Street Parade, whereas if the search result gets you like an article with like some military parade in the US for some reason, which I had, then it would suddenly say Street Parade had like 6,000 military members present, which of course is not correct. But on the Zurich City GPT, it would get like the right documents from the city, and it would then be able to give you a very nice and correct answer. So it's important to distinguish these two things as well. And we also learned that this is a bit hard to do sometimes if you're not too familiar with the technology underneath. And I hope we can make it better in the future, and also provide some feedback or tools to make better systems.
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump in here quickly as well. So like the Zurich City example is using the public AI API and instrumenting that with some additional RAG and web search on top, right? So it's like there are ways of improving the existing sort of system and infrastructure to solve the use case. It just takes a little bit of additional work. Of course, we're going to keep trying to improve the underlying sort of quality of the model and of the API and the infrastructure. But I think there's other stuff that we can do, ideally in an open source way, where it's contributing to this public commons to make the experience better for everybody. Actually, I know, Alex, you've had your hand up for a while, but I'm just going to call on 20KO's question here because it's actually really relevant to this thread. The question is about donated compute, but I think I'm just going to also just heads up, Jacob, I'm going to sort of call on you shortly. The question is about, is it possible to donate compute from a personal computer, like people did at Folding at Home? The short answer to that is no, not right now. But I think the long answer to this is we are trying to figure out ways of bringing more people into this open source project. And how do we activate, we have 50 plus volunteers coming from the contributing forum. There's more coming in every day. And the question is how do we pull together as a community to build out the infrastructure to serve Apertus and make sure it's a great experience for everybody that wants to build on top of it, right? Like folks like Alex, folks like Diego. I think there's a longer question of for me personally, I think the best way you can contribute is not necessarily through compute, but if you have a little bit of time to plug in a piece of code, or even just tune these parameters, right? There's temperature settings that are set currently for everybody.
and you think like, oh, this thing kind of works better, and you set up a little eval that says, hey, this inference architecture works better because of X, Y, Z. You can post in an issue and we will change it, right? We're very responsive to these kinds of things. And to be honest, we don't have the time to experiment with like these different kind of settings at the moment, at least. And we've been thinking more about how to approach this sort of contributor model. Jacob, let me pass it to you to kind of maybe speak a little bit about some of our kind of continuing thoughts here. But this is something we'd love to work out with all of you together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. This is as much a question for you all as it is for me to answer anything, but we're very interested in how use of this inference utility can actually help us build better public interest models and applications. And that really comes down to wanting to learn from each other about how we might be using this new utility. And like as we share those learnings, like how we can build better services and better applications or better ways of collaborating. So this all comes together in an idea that our colleague Nick has put together around around data flywheels for public AI. I can share a mini book that he's written on the topic in the chat. But we were thinking if there's interest for folks, particularly given Swiss AI Week's happening at the moment, if anyone might be interested in experimenting with ways of contributing use data back to a collective learning effort, maybe experimenting with different ways of applying the model for new types of applications. I know we heard from Diego and others already going on. So it's just a bit of a thought bubble. We're interested in a way to like quickly experiment with you all if there's any interest, and would be very happy to hear from anyone after this call if there's interest in following up on this idea of like a data flywheel for public AI using Apertus and this utility.
Thanks, Jacob. Alex, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm very curious about the roadmap. So usually commercial providers of models, for example, they don't have a public roadmap because of their interest, but as a public service, so to say, I think you're on a different, you have a different opinion about that. So I was curious about what are the next steps, also mid and long term. So I heard there is like a thinking mode in training. I'm not sure where I got that, but I somehow remember it. So I just wanted to ask you about that, if that's true or if it was revealed to me in a dream. I don't know. And what is like the mid and long term steps? So I assume at some point maybe you want even to switch the architecture and so on, but that of course also depends on the compute providers and things like that. So is there a possibility to have like an open roadmap? And what are actually the next steps?
Yeah, I think again this can be answered in two ways, right? So I'll just do the sort of model architecture way, and then Joshua or so can do the public AI way. So regarding the model, yeah, we're okay with being more transparent. What we're not going to do is set a deadline. This, for doing things the first time, we were kind of forced to set a deadline because of the Swiss AI weeks, and also because we announced it. And late summer it's not a strict time, but like when you're already end of August, like it's kind of obvious as well. And it was quite stressful.
Sorry, you said that in your podcast as well, yeah, with the deadline.
Oh yeah, so it's something that we want to kind of limit as well to make sure we're not stressing out the people too much that are working on this. Now, that said, yes, we have an RL pipeline that we have shown now to scale to a significant number of nodes that allows us to have a larger scale training. We do have quite extensive RL environments that we think will boost up performance quite a bit in code and math benchmarks, already seen small scale at with the AP model through thinking tokens, the current model already supports this experimentally. There's been trained on a little bit of thinking, but I think by default it's always disabled. The same for function calling or tool use, which is also something we're looking into, which is a bit more challenging because there's fewer RL environments for tool use out there that we can directly build upon. So we need to build some of them ourselves. And this is in petto, and I do hope we can release this before the end of the year, but we'll see. The other thing that we are focusing on is multimodality, in particular image input, not really image output, which also opens some challenges regarding compliance, which we aim to fulfill. But we do think image input is quite valuable for some of the domains we want to support, which are health, education, and legal/governance, for some obvious reasons, I guess. So we have Ethel at ETH, which is a study on using AI when educating people. And there it's about handwritten math and physics, for example. And then there's Meditron on the EPFL side, which is with Annie Hartley, which is doing a lot of humanitarian effort as well, but is based on like a model that is very good in the medical domain, which we're collaborating with clearly. And we want to fold that all into Apertus 2. And our image pre-training is going to be scalable at 70p. So we are working on showing that this works. And then it's a matter of getting the commitment. The commitment is basically there, but we haven't started these runs yet. For bigger models, we are evaluating an MOE architecture just to see like what is the biggest model we can kind of train. And then it's going to be a question if it will be funded. So there is way more people way higher up than I am that need to sign off on this. And also this was essentially only be possible because there's a lot of people who have never been in a room with who said, yes, this is a good idea. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. But we do hope we could actually, I think we could train a very big model on Alps. The question is more like, how efficient are we and how many GPU hours will that require? Like for real, not just like theoretically.
Yeah. I'm going to give a really quick answer to this by sharing my screen. This is the, you can kind of see the feature roadmap that we have internally. Eventually, this is going to get cleaned up and put in front of everybody. So yeah, the plan is to do this basically publicly as soon as we can. I can see like some of the things that we implemented before. The hope is to make this call a regular occurrence and just have it every week. And we'll just like update you on, we managed to ship these features this week. If you have some time, help us ship these features so we can make it even more of a celebratory, hey, we managed to get this done. That is the plan for the inference infrastructure. The hope is just like, there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done. A lot of things we can do to improve the chat as well as the API. And we're just going to try to keep rolling it out relatively steadily. I'll just note we are technically 2 minutes over the hour. I'm happy to continue answering some of these questions, as many as until they run out. But I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So if this is, you need to run off and do other things, same thing to our special guest email, you're very welcome to. And maybe we could just take this time to briefly unmute. So this is like a small little, tradition that we have in public AI is, in the next 3 seconds, if you could join me in a round of applause for everybody that joined here and answer questions and ask questions. That would be wonderful. So in 3, 2, 1. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep on answering questions until it ends, but feel free to drop out anytime, no worries. And thank you again for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
So the next question from Werlust is, can you tell something about where inference is actually happening? So we would like to limit inference to Switzerland. Is there a way to ensure that? This is a really good question. We've actually been asked this question in our GitHub issues. And Well, actually, I think Joseph, you have a pretty good answer. So do you want to just like take this one?
Yeah, sure. So our compute providers across Switzerland, Austria, London, Australia, and Singapore right now. And so we have a small amount of compute from every one location. So right now we just want to balance it like evenly across all of them. So that's why it's a bit difficult at this point to just like limit it to one location.
I think eventually what we'd like to do is have basically a sovereign compute option where you can much more directly choose this is where your inference is going to come from, and it's probably going to have to be like paid on some level, unless we can negotiate something with like a government to kind of subsidize it. But the idea there is, we would probably set up some sort of partnership with Exascale is actually like, is like a Swiss company that's like relatively sovereign, right? And there will be an option to like, just get served Apertus from this, but you can access it either through the API or go separately. So any of those options, I think. Let's keep going. What is the best way to start contributing to the project? Hey, thank you for asking this question. Wait, did we pay somebody to do this? Very simply, just so we have a lot of contributors, but the issue with bringing on new contributors is you kind of have to onboard people. It takes a lot of time, and that's time you're not shipping and building code. We obviously would love to bring on more contributors, right? So I think the best and easiest way is just to create an issue in our GitHub. I think that's github.com/forpublicai/ like chat.publicai.co. You can find it on our on various places in our website, especially publicai.co/contributing. And if there's something you want to work on, I would say just like create an issue, say, hey, this is a thing that I think you could improve, and I'd like to improve it, and give me some advice on how to start doing that. That is probably the easiest way. Just like open up a thread in our repository, and we could start working on it there. As you probably know, if you see it, Joseph and I and Nick and others are pretty responsive. And this gives us a much better way of like triaging different issues, like fixing bugs or adding features and things like that. Let's see. Keep on going. Oh, somebody's interested in the thought bubble. That's awesome. Okay, people are being supportive. Did someone show interest in operating Apertus on hardware based in Switzerland? Yes, the answer is for sure yes. Swisscom is actually the local deployment partner. They are right now mostly focused on enterprise, but there will be an API, or such is an API available during Swiss AI weeks and afterwards. For various reasons, so I'm going to be biased here. I think the public AI API is also pretty awesome, and it's generally speaking going to be much easier to access based on our mission and the way we've set it up. And we work with also Swiss companies like Exascale that are offering compute with hardware based in Switzerland. I will of course mention that AWS, their infrastructure is based in Zurich. So all the servers where you say like, this is sponsored by AWS, it is being served by a team and servers in Switzerland as well. So that hardware is actually based in Switzerland. Okay. I think with that, those are all the questions I see in the chat. Any last comments, questions from either the audience or from the speakers? Okay, great. With that, I'll just make last mention. This is going to become a weekly thing. I will send out an email relatively shortly, basically saying there's going to be another one of these things probably on Thursday next week. And it's just an opportunity to, be in touch. We'll have it's still going to be like relatively technical and dev focused, and just to ideally start a cadence of shipping new features, announcing them, apologizing for some of the things I'm sure that are going to happen, and breaking your APIs. But hopefully we'll be able to do this together, and yeah, keep making progress, keep building together. Okay, Mike, you get one last question, then I'm gonna shut it down. Mike, do you want to unmute?
This is Brett.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, thanks. No, first of all, I think you have done a very great job. Thanks. I have been testing a bit using Apertus, and one last question, and it's not technical. I was observing, there was a lot of negative press. It's bad, it's not on the level of, for example, OpenAI or whatsoever. And I think first of all, what you did, in that time, it's amazing, and the settings and the how do you say, the conditions you were setting I think they are great, right? And is there a plan maybe on this side to counter to counter those vibes, because I think they are not right. I think I have seen on LinkedIn a lot of negative press, and everyone is an expert, right? So there are people from the legal side, making podcasts about AI and blah 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 blah. But I think it's not right, because it's certainly you can improve the model. I'm sure of this, but maybe there could be a benefit to counter this a bit, to showing the benefits of having such a model that is not bound to copyrighted material, for example, because for a lot of people, and I was very shocked a bit, because there are even lawyers that they talk about AI and how great it is, and there are also about things going on about laws, about thinking about the copyright issues. In Switzerland, there was like a motion or something similar from a politician, and I think it's an issue, right? I think it's an issue because everyone knows OpenAI. That's practically piracy. That's piracy. You can tell me whatever you want. If a kid goes to Pirate Bay and downloads TV shows or whatsoever, they say, okay, that's bad, but he's using it privately. But OpenAI, that's global piracy, right? And I think there is potential, to set more attention, or with Apertus especially on this, and saying, guys, they are artists, they are writers out there. They make a living out of their work, and maybe you have to think twice. And taking such key points and make it giving more awareness to people using all that stuff, and counter a bit, or taking a position about, where we say, no, the quality is bad, blah blah blah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. I mean,
to getting to the end, I think it's just there were too many bad vibes, because people were going on and blah blah blah, chatting and saying, oh, it's not working, and that's not true. I think it's a very good start.
It's actually hard to point at something that our comms people did wrong, because even in the media roundtable we had before, we were kind of really making sure that this is a foundation for research and development. It's not a finished product to be compared with ChatGPT, and the same journalist goes out there and writes a headline, which I now understand is not necessarily the same journalist, but then writes about the Swiss ChatGPT alternative. So it's, bad press is also good press in some sense. I think people who kind of understand the technology, they have a much better understanding of what they can do with the model. They also recognize fairly quickly that the 8B model we have is actually very good. It's a bit better than what Meta published a year ago. It's among the best open models that you can have at that scale. And yeah, the 70B is of course not frontier level. So this is a more complicated and longer discussion to be had, but at least we are triggering something a little bit. And what I do hope is that also the broader Europe will sort of pay more attention to what we can do, because we show that the compliance gap, as we call it, is not as large as some people, especially in big tech companies, make you believe it is.
I think this is where it's really important to emphasize that what we're doing here is not just building tech and infrastructure, as important that it is. It's also about kind of advocacy. It's about changing the vibe of what exactly is on social media or LinkedIn, where it's like, it has to be ChatGPT or it has to be built by big tech. But I think our emphasis here is that Apertus proves, and public AI helps prove, that's not the case. That we can do this in a kind of open source way, through open communities, and we can build products that, true, are not directly competitive with ChatGPT now, but they are a lot of the way there, right? And we are going to keep making that better. And if we can change that vibe and put that message out there, I think that will start to change minds. And I think, just like to be clear, change the, let's say, resources that are available to Imanol, to his team, to my team, to all of us who are trying to build a kind of a public open alternative. Alex, all right, last word, and then I'm going to shut it down.
Okay, sorry, to that topic. So I would be very interested also to help on that side. I have some connections to some newspapers, for example, to just be able to write a real newspaper article which are mostly read by non-technical people, for example. Yeah, on LinkedIn, everybody's an expert. But I also don't want to, to crash into the project and steal, I don't know, the scene of anybody or so. It's just that I had the plan to write something about that, because many newspaper articles also in Switzerland and so on were really triggering me. And I don't know, maybe I think some of you I meet tomorrow at the postdoc meeting. I can talk with you directly about that, or possibilities to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in general, the reception was not that bad. I mean, there were some bad, but like the higher quality journals also seem to have higher quality articles, like Le Temps, for example, which is like NZZ, but for the romance, has actually made a pretty good article, which is very fair. And we've seen a few of those pop up as well here and there. Of course, there are some shallow ones as well, which then are more negative, but we're not really worried about those. But feel free to, push this a bit. You don't have to wait for us. We're already a bit overwhelmed with other communication work that we have to do. I need to go back and do some actual work besides teaching a course here. So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. With that, thank you, everybody, very, very much for joining and sticking around 20 minutes afterwards. I hope to see you at some of these future calls. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for organizing, Josh. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Merci.